Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I'm your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, along with my co-host, Rebecca Fishburne, founder of Cornerstone Strength Maryland. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there is a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now, on with the show. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to 5x3 Radio. Rebecca and I are here on this hot July
hot
afternoon. Hot and humid. Not as humid as last week. Last week was ridiculously humid in the gym. It was horrible. So at least this week there's been some break. Monday was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, no humidity at all. Today was a little bit warmer, but overall better. So we talked last time. What did we talk about last? Training in the heat.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Right. So did you tell everybody in your hot, humid gym to listen?
Training in the heat. Yeah. And actually people were listening to the podcast. One of my ladies who comes up and drops in, she said to me, she emailed me, she goes, I'll listen to a podcast, great podcast on training in the heat. I'm really struggling today. And then later I get emails going, I don't think it's the heat. I think I'm struggling regardless of the heat. But definitely,
like we're going next week down to Florida for Felicia's. Yeah, I know. She's got her soccer team nationals tournament down there next week. Outside, I can't even believe it. So it's like crappy outside, and she's been going outside running. We have a treadmill in the basement, but she's got to get acclimated to hot and humid.
I don't like the heat. I realize I hate the heat. I really do. I was training last Thursday, and oh God, it was terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah, I only have about a 10 degree, maybe 8 degree comfort range.
Yeah, it was. I realized I was like, I got nothing in me. I got nothing. I just kind of threw it up. I moved onto the bench. Was like, I'm done. Let's go. I was with Jack and Eleanor. I was like, let's go. I got to get out of here. So this afternoon, we are meeting again with, and there he is, my client Manny, back from his 4th powerlifting meet. Can't hear him just yet. See him, can't hear him. Perfect. I was just doing my introduction for you. Yes. So you're back from your 4th meet. Welcome back, sir. From Jersey. Fifth meet. Oh my goodness. Okay. So you did one in 2021.
I did 4 in the USAPL, but before I started, I did 1 in the USPA.
Got it.
And I decided to stick with the
USPL.
For those.
So my fifth meet. There we go. I thought it was the 5th meet. I wasn't sure. So 5th meet. Okay. So we
I'm a veteran.
You totally are.
Yeah.
Master athlete, veteran powerlifter.
Yeah.
We know we have a time restraint today, so we're getting right to it. So the last time that we spoke, we actually just talked about your training, how you got involved with the strength training.
Go ahead.
Please go ahead. How you got involved with starting strength, that you originally started with CrossFit, but we wanted to spend time today talking about your recent preparations for your meet. So if you think about what you did for your December meet, and then what you did for your March meet, and then recently what you did for your July meet. And I know that's a lot, I'm throwing it out there, but I know we've talked about it a lot. So it'd be interesting for Rebecca and for others to hear what you've taken away from all these different meets and your own training, and how you have subsequently kind of moved from one meet to the next and performed great at each meet, very, very well. And what are some things that you did differently back in December versus just recently? So I think we're just jumping right into it.
First of all, when I look for a meet, I have a particular circumstance that I can only lift on Sunday.
Right.
But I think what applies to anybody is that you should look for a meet that is far enough out that allows you to really do adequate training and preparation. I know there are some people, I think you're one of those people, actually, Emily, I could read you wrong, that doesn't like to schedule far out because, preparing far out takes a lot of time. It's anxiety provoking. And maybe for you, you don't need it. But I like to have maximum time out.
No, I agree.
So
I agree.
I will schedule minimum 4 months before I'll get myself into a meet. Once I sign in, that's a commitment. Now, originally, for my first few meets, I was lifting in the 60 kilogram category.
Right.
That's 132 pounds or less. To be honest with you, for me, it was very hard to maintain the weight that low. I wasn't feeling good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I decided for this meet that I'm going to eat a little more, and I allowed myself to go up so that I was now in the 67.5 kilogram category, which was below 148.
Nice. Yes.
So the way I achieved that, and what I've come out of here learning is that although many people say, including you, Emily, I know we've talked about it, that you don't worry about the weight. You just basically lift where you are at. I believe there's something to be said for making weight.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is if you think about the weight categories, they're usually separated by 16 to 18 pounds. Okay. If you are smack dab in the middle of that, your tendency is going to say, well, why should I change? It's too hard for me to go down. And I would say that's wrong because I used a protocol. I'm going to give you my protocol. It's based on others that I was able to lose in the last week, 11 pounds. I went from hovering at one in the mid, I hovered at 147 for 2 months. Then I went into this protocol, which wasn't terrible. When I go through it, I'll tell you, wasn't terrible. I weighed in at 137.
Oh my God! But you didn't need to.
I know I didn't.
You didn't need to. You didn't need to weigh in at 137. You could have weighed in at 145.
But you have to understand that the part of what I'm going to talk about is anxiety. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to tell you taught me a lesson that if it means anything to you, you can always make weight. And for everybody listening, making weight makes sense because if you ever look and if you're ever serious about competing, you are much stronger in the next lower weight category, and you can do it. And it's not that big a deal. Okay. So my attitude after I was in the 60 kilogram was, after the meet, I'm going to gorge and I'm going to eat pizza and I'm going to eat all the foods I've been depriving myself of. And I did that for a day or two. And literally in 1 week, I gained 15 pounds. So
it's just water.
I said, wait a minute, what is going on? Is the pizza worth it? Because if I continue doing this, I'm going to balloon. So what I did was I did not starve myself.
Right.
Went into what I consider to be a healthy maintenance diet. Okay. And so I decided I'm going to hover a little above the 148.8 category. And I was able to do that. The way you do that, the way you hover, is you have to start weighing yourself at night and in the morning. Okay. At night, you're going to weigh more. And you're going to begin to get an idea of how much you naturally lose without doing anything overnight. I averaged about 4 to 5 pounds a night.
Wow.
It sounds like a lot, but you'll see if you do it for yourself, it'll happen.
Yeah.
You average, you lose overnight. So once you know your morning, what you're going to weigh in the morning, then you know what you got to do. I was already calm because I saw that in the morning, I got my weight down a little by just tweaking my diet. I was able to weigh in all the time for at least 6 weeks before the meet under 148 and under. That gave me confidence, okay, that I can weight. Okay, that's number one. Now, in terms of my diet, this is all part of the preparation. Powerlifters, maybe in the elite category, they do this. In fact, I'm sure they do. I decided that using supplemental things, and that includes protein, powders, and shakes, was not for me. I decided to go completely natural. And the reason being, the protein powders have a lot of what I would call substitute sugars in them.
Mm-hmm.
There are some substitute sugars now in the market, such as monk, I think monk-derived sugar. There is erythritol, which is a natural sugar alcohol. But, this is just my own, I'll call it mishigas. It means craziness.
Yes.
I don't want to do any of that. Okay. And I don't like the idea of taking protein powders. They didn't make me feel good.
Right.
So I decided I can do this by just eating normal food. And usually they recommend for older people, by the way, I'm 74, they recommend older people take extra protein. So if I can do it, I think it's reasonable. In other words, I eat natural, I eat fish, chicken, a lot of salad, raw vegetables. For me, the big killer and the thing I love is carbohydrates, especially bread. So that's the sacrifice I have to make. I don't eat much bread. And obviously I don't eat cookies and cake, which I do crave, but that's the thing I cut out.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Yeah.
I drink, wine. I have a glass of wine a week. I drink some whiskey each week. Very, very
moderation. Sure.
But I consider myself to be now a very natural lifter.
Yeah.
Meaning no supplements. I do take a magnesium zinc supplement at night for bed, but that is something that also helps you sleep. And that's something I do. It's very natural. Okay, so that I don't worry about. Okay, so that I decided for the meat, that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to keep my weight at 147, and I'll get to it later how I actually prepared for the meat. Now, in terms of the lifting itself, the training, what I would say is the way I prepared for my previous meet that we decided was to prepare early on by lifting single heavy weights to get used to that. That was okay, but it interfered with my training. You don't build muscle by doing, you can, but not as well.
Right.
So for this meet, as you know, we worked at about, I would say, where I was 80 to 85% of my max. I'd say those were the numbers that are good, 80%, let's say, or 85% on the lift. We worked and we did, 3s, 4s, 5. That is that for me worked. It worked great. I mean, we were working up so that up until a week and a half before the meet, I had not lifted a heavy weight. And then suddenly, I got a little anxious. We decided about a week and a half before, maybe 2 weeks before the meet, to see what I did. And I did great.
Yes.
Yes. So for me, that is the way to do it because it's more enjoyable and you're training.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
All right. So we went into this, you and I took your advice. We went into this and we did it that way so that up until about 2 weeks before the meet, I was literally just doing standard training in the gym.
Well, you told me, that's what you said to me. You said, I don't want to train for this meet.
Right.
So we decided, okay, we're not going to train until about 2 weeks out. We'll figure out where your attempts are,
Now,
so.
Yeah. Even though I said to myself for this podcast, I'm not going to talk philosophy.
But the people want it.
Okay.
Rebecca and I are here. They don't, they care less about us.
I've learned from my whole experience in powerlifting that I have developed a philosophy. The first thing is, I would say, number one, you have to be committed. And what that means is, I don't know, I am naturally committed to this. I really like it. But if you're not, then you have to get yourself committed if you want to do it. That means the first thing is you got to show up. You got to be in the gym, preferably 3 times a week if you can, if you can't 2, but you always got to show up. And there are days that you may not feel good about it, but you have to be committed. If not, you shouldn't even do it. Just doing it without a commitment. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but
yes,
you gotta put in the work, and you have to really put in the work.
Yes,
that means you have to work hard, and that's true of anything. What I'm talking about is any activity. You have to devote yourself, commit yourself to it. Number 2, and I'm not saying it because you're at the other end. You have to yourself a coach.
Yes.
You need a coach. If it's not powerlifting, you need a rabbi, you need a priest, you need a mentor.
You need a mentor,
you need
right.
somebody to advise you.
Right.
You can't do this stuff on your own. You can, but I can tell you something, your results will be so much better if you get somebody who knows what they're doing. And that does not mean that you go to a local box gym and you sign up and they sign you some personal trainer that has no idea what he's doing. And he tells you how to do a deadlift, and he's working with you at lifting 20 pounds for a deadlift, and you're doing that for 6 weeks. That's not a trainer.
No.
So you got to do your homework. You got to get somebody who is experienced in the task that you are doing. You have to get, if you decide to do powerlifting, and that means strength training with barbells, I don't mean the powerlifting competition, you got to get somebody who's trained in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And pardon me if any physical therapists are listening, you can't do physical therapy you can't do physical therapy protocols and apply them to barbell training.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
different.
Mm-hmm.
Physical therapists know a lot, and they would know. And if they are also trained in barbell training, good. But
Yes.
if they're not, they
Yes.
may tell you this is what physical therapy does, and they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Before I came into the gym, I was having some knee problems before I started with you.
Right.
In my squat. And I went to a qualified physical therapist. I'm using my fingers to make quotes. I went to a qualified physical therapist, and he looked at me, and a great guy. And he said, you know what you got to do? You can't spread your legs that much when you squat. We'll have you do a very narrow squat. It won't hurt your knees. So I followed him. And basically, now that I know, he didn't know what he was talking about. You got to spread your legs when you squat. Okay, that's about it. So number 2. So I said, first, you have to be committed. You have to work hard. You have to do everything in your power that you can to do it. Number 2, when I used to speak, I spoke to people who said, well, maybe I can't afford a coach, so maybe I should. No, if you want to do this and you want good outcomes, I'm not going to talk to you and tell you you can achieve this without a coach. You need a coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be successful. It'll save you. Number 1, it's going to prevent injury. Why would you risk injury? And you still may get injured with a coach, but your risk of injury is multiplied by magnitudes by not having a coach.
Right. And it's finding the right one, as you said, finding the right one.
Now, the specifics of what I learned that we learned together was that, and what's amazing about all this is that when you think about the things you learn, they are what was already taught to you in the beginning. The basics are always going to work, but we don't know how to do and learn the basics. So it's like a full circle. You start out, you try to do it, and you forget about the basics. And then when you finally get it, whoa, I'm back to the starting line.
Right.
What do I mean by that? Okay. The basics, for me, squat has always been difficult. The basics of the squat that you taught me is that you gotta bend over. Okay. That was the biggest change I had in my squat. Even though I was bending over, I wasn't bending over enough. Mm-hmm. You got to bend over. What bending over means, for those who are not familiar, it doesn't mean bending your lower back. Your lower back has to be straight, has to be tight, has to be, in the right position. But you have to hinge at the hips and hinge more. Okay? When you hinge more, you'll be able to get up more, and it'll be safer. I'm not trying to teach someone how to do squat. I'm just giving you my changes.
Yeah, no, yes. And for those who are listening who, you're talking about the low bar squat, which is why you're bending over. If you were doing a high bar squat, you would be moving the hips back, but you wouldn't be leaning over, but you're talking about the low bar squat. Okay. Yes.
Now, the second thing you have to do is, and this is the part that I think I learned the most amount in my squat, is the hardest part for most lifters is, I believe, in the squat, is going deep. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the reason for that is going below parallel. That means going where your hip crease is below where the top of your patella is a scary situation for everybody. In the beginning, no problem because you have light weights. Once you get a heavy weight on, your body naturally says, you have to stop when you're headed down to go low. You have to overcome that. And the way I overcame it was simply by forcing myself with not extremely heavy weights, but with weights I could handle to get down low. And as I did it, my body began learning, oh, this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like to go below parallel. And you have to do it over and over and over again. And then what you'll find, once you are comfortable going low, then you can start raising the weight and your body will go low, because now, once you're comfortable going low, the extra weight will help you get low.
Right.
So,
right. Then you have to worry about coming back out of the hole once you're in there.
If we get to it, what happened at my meet,
right?
I actually went too low.
You went so low.
But I'm just telling you that if I had a choice between not able to go low versus going low, I'd much rather go low, because that potentially is fixable.
Yes.
The other one is much harder to fix.
Yeah.
I now will always go low.
Yeah.
And to be able to say that relieves so much anxiety. To be able to put a bar on my back and literally, without much of a warm-up, to do a below parallel squat. First of all, in my age group, when they watched how low I went, nobody cared what I lifted. Everybody was shocked. To watch an old person be able to go into
I didn't see the video, man.
Oh,
Did
man,
you do
awesome.
To be able
like
to
an
watch an
ATG?
old person go into a low squat, you don't have to lift anything. It's just
220 on his back. He went down. Diego's like, why is he going? Where is he going? And he basically went down into an
sat on his heels.
Yeah, he basically sat on his heels. Yes.
I was in such a low squat. Okay, that's it. So,
but you're right, Manny. If I can interrupt you for 1 second, you're right. I'd rather have somebody go too low and have to teach them how to be just below than someone who can't get to depth and I'm constantly saying lower,
like
lower, lower. Yeah.
That pendulum shift with form correction.
And while we're talking about this, I know we're jumping around between food preparation technique, but
this is good.
What I'm doing. I'm not sticking to it. So the advantage of I think what happens if you analyze carefully when you go too low is at the bottom, when you go too low, you probably lose tension.
Oh, you do.
That allows
Absolutely.
you to go low. And that's why it's harder to, that's why. So you have to get to the point where you can maintain tension and yet go below parallel. Yes. And that's doable. I'm going to,
and you did that. You did that.
I've got a question, because this is interesting. This is your 5th meet now that you've done, and you're talking about an anxiety of getting low, hitting depth, that was something like a psychological barrier that you had to overcome with this meet. Is that something that you struggled with all along through those prior meets, or is this something that emerged?
No, struggled all along, and I'm going to devote a good deal to that subject. I just want to get to the next step. I
didn't know if that was because for me, there were new anxieties that sprung up after I had done more meets.
Right.
But that sounds like one that probably was a core anxiety there all along.
I'm going to deal with that in a second. I have that in mind because that's the biggest thing. So I'm going to get through the things. I got the squat, the bench press. I used to hate the bench press, but what I really love about the powerlifting, I'm going to use that as a term, is that I'm a very weak bench presser. But I've been able, by working with Emily, we worked on it. We worked on every little part. I improved my technique so much that I actually enjoy the bench press, because you see, if you are really good at something from the get-go and you decide not to do it further, you decide not to improve it, that's a great feeling. But if you start incorporating improving technique, then barbell training becomes really a lot of fun, because You're constantly progressing slowly. Your technique is better. You're teaching your body, and that's what it's all about. Technique is not something you learn in a week, a month, a half a year. No, you're working on technique literally your whole barbell training life. And when you view it from that point of view, it actually becomes a lot of fun because you can't build muscle rapidly, especially if you're old, but even if you're young. So the only way you build muscle is by doing it. And there's not much you can do except to do it, okay? But you can always improve your technique constantly. That's something that you can work, you can say, oh, I'm gonna do this better, I'm gonna do that better. You actually become very actively involved, which makes it interesting and fun. And I hate to say it, because, we powerlifters are bros and, we don't think much, but it's really, you have to be intelligent to do barbell training. It's an intelligent activity that surprisingly very few people realize that good lifters are intelligent unless they're so naturally gifted. But most good lifters are intelligent and they love to talk about it because it's an intellectual exercise. Whenever you get with a group of lifters, you'll hear them talking about, technique. I did this. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, okay? And then I'm going to get to the major subject that I want to get to. Number 3, at some point, you have to basically realize that you're not in control, okay? Meaning, when I'm going to get back to step 1 about preparation, you have to prepare as much as you can. That's your job. You have to prepare the lifting. You have to prepare the diet. You have to prepare, when you go to a meet, we can get into that, what you have to do to get to a meet. How you have to do as much as you can. You have to dot the I's, cross the T's, everything that's in your power you can do. But where most of us make a mistake, I certainly do, is where you cross over and worry about things that are not in your control, okay? And it's a cliche. Everybody talks about it, but very few of us are able to really cross the barrier, but we work at it. You have to know when you're not going to be in control and you just have to let it happen, okay? That's hard. I don't know how other people are going to do it. I am a religious person, so I said, it's out of my hands. God is going to control what I do. And if I don't do it, that's in the plan. If I can't make the lift, God had that happen. And if I make it, God had that happen. Now, he didn't have it happen without my putting in my work. But he definitely, or she, or however you want to put it. Meaning, if you're not religious, I'm not going to try to convert you. It's not my job. But you have to realize there's a part that you don't control.
Right.
And that other part is things that happen to you. And so if they happen to you, you have to say, okay, it happened to me. I did my best. Okay, we're done with that. Now, the major change that I want to talk about, a major problem for me, has been anxiety and the mental aspect of lifting. Yogi Berra, he said many, many wise things, even though when they came out, they weren't wise. And everybody probably knows this, but I'm going to say it over again. Yogi Berra said, baseball is 90% mental and the physical is the other half. Now, if you do the math, you get the joke.
Right. You get the joke.
Okay. He exaggerated, okay? But there's no question in my mind that the mental aspect of doing any activity, I'm going to say, it plays a major role. And the beauty for me of participating in an athletic activity, especially something like barbell training, is that it teaches you so much about the mental aspect of how to approach things, who you are. So when I started lifting way back 2.5, 3 years ago, every time before my deadlift session, 2 days before, I would get tremendous anxiety where, life became not enjoyable. Literally, 2 days before, I'd say, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. I have to lift 300 pounds, deadlift. And I'm so scared. What if I don't make it? What if I hurt?" I had so much anxiety, and I didn't know what I was worried about. The anxiety is loose, just goes crazy. Okay. And with anxiety, you get depressed.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, anxiety and depression in and of itself are very related. Secondly, you're anxious about an activity that you're supposed to enjoy.
Right.
So you get depressed. What am I doing before? It makes me miserable.
Right.
Okay. So that gradually lessened as I became better at the lifts. So the anxiety will lessen as you become more confident. But there's still a major component of anxiety. And for that, I had to do an active intervention. And so I'd been working very much on my technique and lifting, and I enjoyed it. But then I said, I'm always the kind of guy, even though I'm a little old man, I'm a bro. I don't believe in this mind stuff. You know what I mean? That's woo, But I said, let me give it a shot. So I picked up a couple of books about the mind game. I started reading, and I said, let me see what's going on here. And I decided to apply a few techniques. Now I'm just in the beginning of learning the mind game. So what I'm about to say is just the beginning, but I'll tell you at the end of the story is they really worked for me. Mm-hmm. So what happens is that when you do a lot of training, and I'm not saying I did a lot, but 3 years, multiple meets, I'm sort of beginning to be a veteran. When you do a lot of training, the main purpose of the training is to teach your body motor patterns. Okay? In other words, what lifting does, the beauty of lifting anyway, is because you're not competing against somebody else. You're not getting a fastball thrown at you. There's not a basketball being thrown at you. It's like golf. It's an individual sport. And I'm not saying the other sports are not good, but you take advantage of the sport you have. Mm-hmm. The opponent in barbell lifting is yourself.
Yes.
Okay? You set your goals. You are the one who defeats yourself. When things don't go right, you can't look around to blame anybody else. You are to blame, and not in a bad way, mm-hmm. but you have to look for the answer among yourself. Mm-hmm. So what I want to do is I want to let my body do what it already knows how to do. And what happens is your other self, the critical, anxious, depressed part of you says, you can't do this. This is all going to be bad. You're going to fail. You're not going to make it. You're going to injure yourself. And suddenly you're thinking about all this, and your body says, well, forget about it. I'm not doing anything here. Your mind is occupied with these other thoughts. That's what you have to get away. Mm-hmm. So the techniques that I developed, not that I developed, I read about and that I tried is, number one, you need to figure out a way to relax, okay? Your body should be very tight. Your mind should be very loose. Mm-hmm. You have to be really relaxed, and it should be something that it's not even a question of enjoying. It's like you're like floating. There's no thought. You're just doing what you do. I think they call that focus. Some people call that flow. Mm. It all relates to that you are basically just doing. And it becomes a pleasurable experience, but it's a unique pleasure. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I experienced it, but I think I experienced a lot of it by applying the techniques. So the first thing you got to do is everybody has their own focus, okay? Some people are very comfortable chatting before the lifting. Great. Okay, I'm not. I like to be in my own brain. I like to sit there quiet. I like when music is playing. When somebody talks to me, I'm a little uncomfortable about it. I'm polite, but I basically ward off conversation. I sit there quietly. That's me. Everybody has to find their own situation. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and the major thing that's easy to do, you have to talk to yourself. I don't mean think to yourself. You actually have to outright verbalize. So what I said as I was preparing this mentally, I said, you're okay. You're doing great. You feel good. You can do this. You've done this before. There's no problem here, only positive. I didn't say, don't collapse your knees. Don't loosen your back. I didn't use the word don't. I always said, you can. This is yours. And I talked, even though people looking at me would think it's silly. And when you hear me say it, you say, man, this guy, no, it works. Okay, you got to talk to yourself and you have to hear it. You have to say, I can do this. This is great. Because if you notice, if you try it after we get off, if you talk to yourself, there's no room for other thoughts because you got to listen to yourself. And as you know, when somebody's talking to you, you can't think of something else. So you talk to yourself. You can do it. This is yours. You've done this before. You can make it. You're strong and amazing. It works. You don't know how, but it works. So once you start being successful with a technique like this, it lowers your anxiety, okay? And things are starting getting better. The second thing, again, I'm only talking about very simple, straightforward techniques that the average person can use. Secondly, you have to do proper breathing. Everybody knows this. You basically take a nice deep breath through your nose and then long exhale, longer than the inhale. And if you can, you try to get the breath going into the belly. Now, people talk about this all the time. Everybody says, yeah, I do that all the time. Okay, fine. You're smarter than me if you do it all the time. I started doing it. So what I do is when I start feeling anything come on, not only lifting, when I'm in a situation, take a deep breath through my nose a couple of times, do that, and I'm relaxed. So 2 techniques. I do the breathing, then I do the self-talk. Okay, now, the third technique is you, again, I'm only beginning to just get this. You know, you have to, in some way, be optimistic about the future, okay? Meaning that this is the old cliche adage that you can either look at it as a glass half full or half empty. But if you think about what that means, in other words, that's why I say the basics really work. The problem is we don't apply them. The glass is half, it's half. It's up to you what you want to look at it. Okay? So let's say I failed one lift at the meet. Okay, now in the old days, I would have said, oh, you're such a bad lifter. You took this up. No, not anymore. Okay, because you have to remember that it doesn't mean you're a bad lifter. It means you missed the lift. And if you start saying you're a bad lifter, that's silly. Okay, so those 3 things. Number 1, you have to basically breathe, get yourself relaxed, do a lot of talking to yourself. And when you do something that's off, don't blow it out of proportion. Don't catastrophize. Don't say everything after this is going to be bad. Now, even though it says, well, it's easy for him to say, no, it's not. No. I'm the kind of person who typically went there like that. But you have to work at it. And you have to work at that. Okay, now, another thing that I discovered, and again, this is all about the mental game, because the mental game is really where it's at. Okay? Because if you don't get the mental game, then the training is not going to be enjoyable. Right. You do the mental aspect for 2 reasons. Number 1, it will improve your ability to lift. I would say I am guaranteeing it. I'm guaranteeing that if you try some of these techniques, you will be better. And I'm also guaranteeing that if you really, really work at these techniques, you'll be happier doing it because you'll say, oh, this is not that bad. Now, what that means is, and powerlifting and barbell training is the extreme example of it, okay? If you're on the golf course hitting a ball, of course you want to have the mental activity, but no hit is hard. meaning you don't have to go to the ends of your soul to make that hit, okay? Hitting a ball, granted, a guy like Tiger Woods can hit a ball 360 yards,
right,
and I can hit a ball probably 100 yards, probably backwards when I'm going. But the point is, his effort is not much greater than mine.
right.
But in lifting a heavy weight, when you get those weights on your back or when you're lifting it off the floor, while you're doing it, it really is uncomfortable. Okay, you're working very hard. And if they had a microphone on you and you're at the bottom of the squat and have to get up, and somebody says, "How do you feel?" You're going to say, "I'm miserable." Because I'm struggling getting up.
That's right.
That's the given of barbell training. And in order for you to enjoy that, something else has to be there. Because the actual lifting is very difficult on the body. You're struggling, you're pulling your body to do something it doesn't want to do. Doing something that hard, nobody wants to do it. You have to say, you have to get a reward from it. And the only way you get a reward from it is conquering the mental game.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
You have to conquer it. Everybody's going to do it differently. Okay? So I'll be honest with you, I'm looking forward to getting back in the gym because it's so pleasurable to progress. I don't care. I mean, it's great going to meets and everything like that, but progressing and watching yourself get stronger is such an amazing feeling.
And attitude is everything. I'm listening to you talk, Manny, and I'm thinking of clients I have who have the best attitudes. And I'm sure Rebecca has clients the same thing as she can think of, like her online clients or in-person clients, the ones who make the most progress, the ones who really do, even if they don't do the self-talk out loud, but they have the right attitude and they go in and they show up and they put the work in and they suffer, right? They put themselves out there. The work is hard. They know it's hard, but they don't, I'm going to say they don't worry about making the lift, but they know I'm doing I'm doing what I can to do. I'm showing up, I'm putting the work in. This is pleasurable to me because the attitude is I'm getting better every time I come in here. And it doesn't matter what kind of day it is. It's the day it is. The glass is half. And it's always for them half full, not half empty. The ones who don't make the best progress are the ones who constantly see it as half empty. But if only I had this, but if only this didn't hurt, but if only this, well, let me fix this. And they're constantly coming in with that. Those people, they can't make progress because they're so in their heads in a different way than you're in your head.
Right.
It's a different attitude, and listening to you speak, and I'm watching you change and grow as a lifter and as a power lifter too.
You're always going to fail.
Yes.
Number one, you have to get some things in your mind. Okay. You're going to get injured. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying you definitely will, but there's going to be some kind of injury.
Right.
Now, you have to understand that unless it's something horrible, okay, you're going to recover. You may not make 100% recovery, you'll make 95%. It's going to happen. And it's not going to take that long, okay? If you get injured, and we all do it, I do it, and you start catastrophizing, it ruins your life, ruins your day, okay? So one thing is, once you realize that this is a sport, any sport, you're going to have some injuries. And as soon as you get an injury, doesn't mean I don't do it. Doesn't mean, okay. That's the hardest one to conquer.
Sure.
The dealing with the injury. And I'm not going to get into that because
it's a whole other podcast.
I'm like everybody. When I get a tweak, I say, uh-oh, is this the beginning of the end for me? You know, like, okay, that we're not going to cover. But when you fail on something, I watch people in our gym, okay, in the morning. When you're young and you're a guy especially, okay, big guy, you know, and you say, okay, I'm going to do a press. Let's say you weigh 200 pounds and you decide I'm going to do a press 180 pounds, which is pretty good, okay? And you don't make it. I watch a guy walk away, almost like kicking himself, and the day's ruined. I get it, okay? Happened to me. That's not the way to approach it because it happened today. You failed today. It's a one-time event. It happens all the time. You know, continue working out Next time you'll make it. But don't ruin the next 3 days until you come in again. That's the mental game, okay? So how do I apply the mental game and what's important? As this meet comes up, okay, I already told you what I do at the meet before the lift. And by the way, I was watching a couple of things. You can look at other sports, and it's nice to look at elite athletes, because if you watch the elite athletes, not the athletic activity, watch them before a race. Let's say I was watching some world champion racers, and these were women. And they, the way they always say, before they screen to the faces while they're waiting for it to start, 3 of the 4 I saw were going like this. They were talking to themselves. They were talking. They were doing what I was doing. These people at the elite level, that's what they do. Okay, getting back to this meet. So coming out to the meet, okay, and one of the reasons I like to go to a meet, you and I have discussed this, Emily, is that both of us get pleasure out of the preparation for the presentation. A meet is like a dance. A meet is like putting on a play. You prepare and you're about to go on stage. And I know most people don't compete and they say, I would never want to go that. I don't need that. I have learned to enjoy getting up on stage and doing it. I don't know why. Okay. I don't know why. I just enjoy doing it. It's a pleasure. It's like if you enjoy dancing, if you're training for dancing and you don't go up on the stage,
okay,
you're doing a different thing. Okay. So I enjoy being up there. Now, being up there requires a lot of work beforehand. Okay. So let me tell you the steps that it requires. Okay. First of all, you got to worry about your diet, whether you're going to make weight. Secondly, most meets, you got to travel somewhere, even if you have to travel by car, even if it's local. Got to worry about, is my car going to break down? Okay. On the way to the meet. When do I have to leave? Okay. At the meet. Okay. You got to go through a weigh-in. Okay. How am I going to go? Now, if you've tried to make weight, usually you're coming in thirsty and hungry. So the earlier you can weigh in, the better, because then you have to replenish yourself in 2 hours. Okay. So will I be one of the early ones getting in there? Can I sneak in there? Can I basically push in front of the line to get in the earliest I can? Okay. Then you got to get your rack heights. In other words, the rack heights we use in the gym are different than the Alico racks that they have. That you have to tell me your rack height. Okay. Now I don't know at each particular meet whether the racks are the same. So I got to get in there. I got to figure out how to get my rack height. Okay. Who's going to help me with that? I don't know how to do that. Okay. Then you start thinking and saying, oh, I have to bring my federation card. I have to bring my license. I got to remember that. Oh, and I got to bring the food that I'm going to eat afterwards. I got to bring the drink. I got to afterwards. Oh, and God forbid if I forget, what if I forget about a piece of my equipment? Because they tell you, some people bring doubles of everything. Okay. What if I forgot my belt? What if my shoelace breaks? What if my uniform doesn't fit? What if my singlet doesn't fit? Okay, that's okay. We're talking to you now. Okay, and what happens if I don't hear when they call me up for the meet? What happened? You start having all these things you got to prepare. Well, you can imagine, as intelligent people, what's going to happen? You're going to be anxious because all of this is suddenly coming in on you. So the technique that I would recommend, is when you have literally a tidal wave of anxiety coming over you, what you have to do is you have to basically break it down. You have to take each step and understand what you're worried about and use your intelligence to talk yourself down. Okay, so I'm going to do that. okay? So I start at the beginning. You can start at any point. Okay, so what about traveling in my car? What if it breaks down? You know what? My car, I make sure I have gas in it. My car is not a great car, but it's an okay car, okay? If it's going to break down, that's something that's out of my control.
Right.
That's something I can't worry about. If it's going to break down, that means I wasn't supposed to be at the thing. I'm not going to worry about that. And it works. I don't worry about my car. My car's going to make it, okay? I'm not going to speed, even though I speed on the highway usually. I'm going to be careful because I don't want to get, and I don't want to be stopped, okay? But if I'm stopped and I get a ticket, okay, so I'm behind 10 minutes. I leave myself room for that. That's all that can happen. I'm not going to talk back to the officer because he's going to take me in and that is going to take me out of my meet. So I'm going to be pretty comfortable. Next step, I get to the meet, okay? I get to the meet. I'm going to get there early. Usually I try to get in, if I can, I lift in the morning. So the meet usually, the weigh-in starts either at 6 or 7 in the morning. This one started at 7. So I said, all right. Now I had to go upstate New Jersey, okay, for this. So I left Saturday night and I traveled up to the hotel and I stayed overnight, okay? So I was worried about, what about coffee in the morning? How am I going to get my coffee? That's something that worries me, okay? They have a Starbucks there, but I was told that you may have to wait online there. I didn't want to wait online, okay? So to show you, I'm a preparation freak. I took my coffee maker from home and I brought it with me. I took away one piece of anxiety. Wasn't that big a deal?
That's right.
No, don't worry about the coffee. I had Gatorade because I need Gatorade afterwards. I had my food packed with me. I'm all good. I got my food with me. I take some medicine. I took two copies of the medicine. One I put one place, one I put in the other place in case it gets lost. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that if you go through each step and prepare and logically think about it, you take care of each step along the way. And then you don't have a tidal wave of anxiety, okay? So you gotta basically, the key for people like us, and I'm assuming many people like us that have anxiety issues, is to not let that bowl you over, to understand that everybody listening is intelligent enough to say, I'm going to take each step of the thing and I'm going to prepare myself as best as I can. And what I can't do, not going to worry about. Okay, now, what about how do you handle the weigh-in? Well, what are you going to do? You've gone through the technique, and if I get to it, if not, we'll do another podcast about the technique. You've gone through it. You're in the hotel at night. What you're going to weigh, you're going to weigh. Right. Okay. There's nothing to worry about. If you make weight, you make. What is the worst that can happen if you don't make weight? All right. So you lift in a higher weight category. Big deal. You're still going to lift. It's not going to be the end of the world. Okay. You're going to be okay. Now, what do you do? What about for the getting your rack heights? Okay, so what I always do is usually at these places, there are a lot of smart people, a lot of well-trained people. You walk up to somebody. I walk up to somebody who looks like he knows what he's doing. I say, can you help me with my rack heights? And the people at powerlifting are so friendly. Barbell people are the friendliest people in the world. They will help you out. As soon as I ask somebody, they go, yeah, sure, come on over, and they help you get your rack heights. Now, this meet was a little different. This was a regional meet, which means, unlike a state meet or local meets, everybody here was what I would call a veteran. To make a regional meet, you have to have a score beforehand, which means you have to be in one meet. And a lot of these people were veterans, okay? Usually in the back room, almost every lifter had a coach with them. Most have coaches. These people are very serious. Now, because of my strange situation, I had to lift on Sunday. Usually they have the lighter lifters lift earlier in the meet, like on Friday or Saturday. I was lifting on Sunday. So I'm a 67 kilogram lifter. I was lifting with a whole group of 90 kilogram lifters. 90 kilogram, obviously is 30 kilograms more. Many of these people,
Big guys.
30 kilograms more than me. That means like 70, 80 pounds. And these guys look like lifters. When you get a meet, most lifters are going to be in their 20s, 30s. They're going to be few in their 40s, and there are going to be some masters there, but most are going to be 20 and 30. Unlike other meets, there were no women in this room that were lifting, all men. All these guys looked just like powerlifters look. What does that mean? They were all squat, extremely well built. There was nobody there that wasn't well built. Wide shoulders, their legs, thighs and butts, muscular, large. These guys look like lifters. And when I walked in, I actually I WhatsApped my family. I wanted to say, I'm in a room full of monsters, full of testosterone. These guys are walking around. And they're all really focused. They're all, and there's like so much energy in that room. Okay, but the point is that I was worried about what happens in the back room, but I already dealt with it. I said to myself, whatever you see in the warm-up room, nothing is going to be bad because they're friendly.
Yeah.
Underneath, they're friendly. Now, I'm very worried about, will I get time to warm up? Because you have to understand, when my top warm-up is where these guys are starting out. My top bench press is, my top warm-up for the bench press is 115 pounds. These guys are starting out at 130 pounds.
Right.
How am I going to get in there to warm up?
Right.
Okay. I'm telling you right now, barbell people are the friendliest people in the world. This has happened to me already at 3 meets. I walk up to somebody. I say, can I work in with you? Usually I try to identify somebody that's potentially a coach that's with one lifter. There are coaches there with 3 or 4, but I try to identify somebody with a coach that's one lifter. I walk up and say, can you help? Can I work in with you? Can you help me? This guy said, no problem. Not only did he help me, and this happened at my last meet also. He actually, in the warm-up room, you have to put the weights on yourself. When you go on the platform, they do it for you. But this guy put the weights on for me. I tried to put them on. He said, no, you save yourself. Put the weights on for me, told me what to do. Now, part of the preparation is, what I'm going to say, is before you go to a meet, and I think before you go into your training every day, you should know what you're going to do. You should write it down. I prepared very carefully exactly what my warm-ups were. Now, to show you how careful I was, and I think it's a lesson for everybody, you can either warm up in the back. On the stage, you're going to be with kilogram weights. In the back warm-up room, you don't know what they're going to have. Some places will give you kilogram plates. Some places will only have pound plates. Some places will have plastic collars for the weights. Some places will have metal collars. The metal collars weigh a lot more than the plastic ones. So at home, I prepared all my warm-ups with the idea in mind that I may have plastic, I may have metal, I may have pounds, I may have kilogram. I walked in there and I knew exactly what I had to do. So when the guy asked me, what are you going to do next? I said, I'm doing this. That's how you have to prepare. So I wasn't worried about it anymore. You have to prepare each step. And then you don't get a tidal wave of anxiety coming over you. You approach the meet saying, I'm going to do this. This is going to be a great experience. And it works. And all I'm saying is, I'm not saying any great magic. You don't have to be super smart to do it. You just have to basically
2 minutes.
Okay. You just have to basically use your common sense and prepare well in advance.
Yes.
Very important. I said it before. Before you go to a meet, you got to work it out with your coach exactly what you're going to do. And I want you to know, I have the same tendencies as everybody else. We worked at the exact numbers I'm going to do. And I said to myself, maybe I should do a little more. I said, no, be the smart guy. You do what you said you're going to do. And it works.
Yep.
So the take-home message, I don't know if we'll do another podcast, but the take-home message now is that in order to be successful, and that doesn't mean necessarily meet, you need to prepare. You need to prepare. And when you prepare with a coach, when you cover all the bases, the anxiety goes way down. Because when you come into a meet, you've done all this before. I hit all my numbers before the meet. Right. I was sitting there kind of calm. In fact, I was sitting there like that, and I was waiting for somebody to say, God, you look awfully calm. Because, you know what? And despite that, I did miss one meet, one lift. Okay. And the reason I missed the lift, and we're not going to have time to go into it now, is that because I was going for American records, every one of my lifts had to be judged by special judges. So there were a few other people at the meet going for American records, but none on Sunday. So imagine they bring in guys that are like, they're all, I would call them gray-haired, because these are the most senior that you got in the US APL. They have to wear sport jackets. In fact, one judge didn't wear a sport jacket at the beginning of my lift. They made him put on a sport jacket because these are special judges.
Wow.
And if you look at the video, you'll notice that whenever I come up, suddenly there's a flurry of judges going across the stage. So me, this little shrimp of a guy that is lifting less than everybody else, there's a flurry. Okay? So that kind of flustered me. Mm-hmm. And they're tough. I got multiple single red lights on almost all of my lifts because one just said, I didn't like your right knee. I said, okay. So the way you handle a judge is say, okay, I'm listening. Watch my right knee next time. It's going to be tight. But the head judge on my deadlift said, didn't like the shoulders. They weren't far back enough. So I didn't argue with him. I said, okay, next time you watch my shoulders. But each of those little things, it tweaked me a little. So I missed one lift. I don't mind, because I said to myself, you missed the lift because you didn't follow through on, you got flustered. Your brain took over. Uh-huh. I had hit that weight before in the gym several times.
Yes.
But again, it's proof. My mind took over and didn't allow my body to do what it knew. Okay.
Yeah. Good. That's it. Fantastic. Okay. I would like to do another podcast. We'll figure out another time to have you back on. Yes.
I would talk about, maybe at some point, it can be way in the future. It doesn't have to be right away, is more, what I would say is a little more about the mental game, because I plan on running out more.
Yes.
A little more about, if anybody's interested in the future, a little more about making weight. You can go online and learn a lot, but I can teach you how to make weight.
Yeah. I would love to have you on for that and for the mental aspect. And I do want to say that when you did your third attempt on the squat and you missed it, we were watching it. Esther, your wife, was texting me. Oh no. I said, he's fine.
Yeah.
I said, he knows what he did.
Yeah.
She said, I hope it doesn't mess him up for the next. I said, it's not going to. I said, I've been watching him with the technique that you were describing. I was watching you prepare for this.
Right.
He's fine. You could see on his face you were fine.
I got freaked out by the fact that I had these 3 jacketed judges watching me. Yeah. So I said, I'm going to go so low that there's not going to be in the mind. I did. I almost went flat to the ground.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyway.
All right, Manny, thank you.
Good luck to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye, Manny. Thank you. I don't actually want to end just there. If you have, are you pressed for time?
Oh, no, not really. No. Are you?
I just kind of want to recap on what he talked about, because I think it was so, every time Manny's on, and it's the second time he's been on, I feel like he's been on before, like many times before, but you listen to him. And this is the first time I really was like listening to him and absorbing what he was saying. I always do. We have great discussions in the gym, but it got me thinking about so many other things. There's so many now. I have so many more topics on my mind. Because when I talked about the clients who make the most progress, and it's attitude. and it's mental preparation and it's planning. It's really so true. Like this, he said, this should be enjoyable, right? If you're training, you should be doing this because it relieves stress, or it's something that you enjoy. You're passionate about it. It makes you feel good. It's giving you back something that, you're getting back what you're putting in. And I sometimes feel that a lot of trainees have a different approach to training that is actually backfired, that backfires on them, right? That's the attitude of, I can only use this bar, or I can only push these numbers. And if I'm not pushing these numbers or using this, I'm not doing the program right. It's not worth training for me. And that mental game, that mental aspect, and that attitude is everything. You're not going to make any progress if you're constantly putting yourself down, or this bothers me and this bothers me, but I refuse to train another way in order to give this a break. I'm just not going to train at all. That mental game that you have with yourself you're making it worse than you are better. And seeing him change over the past couple of years and really be okay with when something is bothering him, or changing things up, or taking out an exercise, replacing with something else, has been huge, and has been why he's made so much more progress in the past year, is because he hasn't let something this idea of like, I have to do it this way or else there's no reason to do it at all. And I think a lot of my trainees get caught up in that kind of all or nothing attitude when it comes to, I would say, starting strength, in a sense.
Yeah, that's what I'm just wondering about. Because like, I'm thinking about, like, I definitely had this notion, like, you have to do the program, you have to do a certain way. There's a rigidity to it.
Right.
And that's the novice linear progression. Once you get past that,
Right.
there's a lot of flexibility in how your program is developed. But I think a lot of people are introduced, with the blue book, the linear progression, and then they stop reading at that point and have this idea that it has to be so strict. But like, I mean, you're working with people who either have been introduced to the starting strength program because of your gym, or have come to your gym because they have already been introduced to the starting strength program. And like, I mean, I'm just thinking about when we were just recently with my nephews, and they both do barbell training, but like they don't have any of that rigid thinking about their programming. And yeah, so that's kind of where I was in my head. I think it's something that's sort of specific to people's interpretation, or maybe even misinterpretation of the starting strength program.
Yeah. And I understand, like in Manny's case, this is not his last meet. He always says it, but you can tell it's not his last meet, right? So, and that's great. He has a passion. He's found a passion for something, and he's good at it. He puts a lot of time and preparation into this. And for him, he does need to train with a bar, right? He's got a deadlift, he's got a bench, he's got a squat. Now, if something were to occur, though, if he were to have a wrist issue or a shoulder issue and he could not get under that bar, he would not have a problem switching to another bar now. Whereas before, it was a little bit touch and go. Like when he injured his elbow a couple of years ago, I had him squatting with the cambered bar. He hemmed and hawed about it, but then he kind of resigned the fact that squatting is squatting. Do you want to train or don't you want to train? And once it calmed down, we got him back under the bar. He does squat once a week. He squats twice a week, once with the barbell and once with a safety bar. He loves the safety bar. And I think that's what has gotten him so much more confident. And he didn't say that, but I think that's what's more confident with his, he's more confident with his squat, with his depth, because he can get really low with the safety bar, right? It's a different squat. Yeah. So he's really gotten low, and he's comfortable at the bottom. He's way more comfortable than he used to be. And that's helped him. And he knows that that's helped him. So he's not rigid in that sense anymore. But in his case, he does compete in powerlifting. If you're not competing in powerlifting and you injure yourself, but you can still squat, you just can't squat with a straight bar because of something. Why would you not want to squat with something else if you still squat? Well, the problem is some people, they refuse to use a different bar if it's not the barbell. And that's where your attitude and your thought process and your training, you're missing the point of strength training. You're missing the point really of what getting stronger is.
Well,
Right?
I mean, like what you're describing is two separate goals, right? Like, so Manny's goal, his point, his reason for doing this is he's working on powerlifting records. I mean, there's obviously other motivating factors, but that is like his goal.
Yes.
Big umbrella, big picture goal. Most people are maybe going to dabble in a meet here or there, or be interested in hitting PRs. But most people that you or I are working with, the main goal, the big picture, is to be strong, be independent, be age gracefully.
Exactly.
All of those sort of like general.
And there, you really, being rigid is going to hinder you.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt your progress rather than make progress.
Yeah. So
and that's important. And I don't know if we've talked about that on our podcast before. And this might be something that we discuss.
Well, this is what I'm starting to wonder, because I mean, Manny already talked for like an hour. I don't think we want to tack on another hour.
No,
I think we have talked about rigid thinking in your training. And a lot of times that sort of rigidity leads a person to have that sort of all or nothing attitude.
Right.
I'm either going to do it this way or not at all. And we have talked about that before. It doesn't mean that it's not worth revisiting. Some of the things that he mentioned that I'm interested in thinking about a little bit more, when he's talking about the preparation and the mental game and all of that, like he makes it sound so logical and so easy. These are the things I can control, and here's how I'm going to control them. These are the things I can't control. I'm going to let it go. Like, first of all, that deciphering process is difficult for a lot of people. What can I control and what can't I control? We have misperceptions about how much control we have over things. And then the other thing, letting go of the things that you can't control, a lot easier said than done. And so how do you make peace with that? I can't control this. I'm just going to leave it alone. Maybe it'll work out. Maybe it won't.
Yep. Yeah. No, that was, I've heard things, and we talk a lot. So I hear him talk a lot, but I've heard him say today different things that I've heard before. That really was nice to hear and resonated with me and made me think even more about my own training. And my own lifting, and as preparing for a strong woman contest next month, I definitely have been approaching my training in a different ways, things I have to work on, things I know I already have, and having a very calm mindset about it, not really actually talking too much about it, being very, very chill about it, like, and enjoying the process and trying to relax before the meet, the contest comes up, because I know that I have anxiety about performing. I love to perform, and he and I have talked about this so many times. And as a dancer, there's the rehearsal process, right? You prepare, and then the day comes where you perform. And in a meet, it's your one day, right? You don't get one more chance. You don't get another meet. And with me as a dancer, as a non-professional real dancer, kind of just more semi-professional in Baltimore, they were really typically one, maybe two performances I got, right? Professional dancers get many, many performances, right, during a season. So I really was going into like a one-time deal. And that's kind of, it's either now or never. Like, it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen. And that's kind of the excitement about performing, about lifting, about a powerlifting meet. You prepare, you're ready, anything's going to happen. It's kind of live performance. It's what it makes it exciting. It's what makes it nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It's kind of
physiologically, same thing.
It's out of your control. Yeah. I get on that stage, I step on that stage, and everything relaxes, and things can go wrong, and things have gone wrong. I have blanked out. during solos where I can't remember what comes next and just have to make it up. I have fallen on stage, when I wasn't supposed to. My left shoulder 11 years ago is when I injured it. I landed on my hands and I had done it 1,000 times in rehearsal and something in my shoulder went and my brain went, oh shit. And the next day I'm rolling around on a ball for an hour and it's been kind of toast ever since then. But it's those things like, you have to go with it. Like something happens. Well, I better just keep going because, I'm still on stage and the music's still playing and people are expecting me to move. So your attitude has to be one of like, I did it, I'm moving on. We
have these conversations a lot recently with Felicia getting ready to go into this nationals. There's like other players coming on the team. Like how much playing time is she going to get? Like returning players who have gone off to college and they're coming back and they're available, and it's good to have extra subs, but some of them that might affect playing time she gets, and we have to just keep coming back to what can you control.
That's right.
In this situation can you control? Because if the coach is bringing on extra players, so you've got a deeper bench for the tournament, that's not necessarily bad, but if you want playing time, what can you control? Because you can't control what the coach is doing. You can't control how the other players are playing.
Right. And I think, with barbell training, what I was listening to when I was thinking about what he was saying, so much of that is life, right? Yeah. So much of that is like, it's synonymous
Ted Lasso. Barbells are life.
It's synonymous with life. I mean, that's you can control a lot of things in the gym. We talk about that, right? You can control your weights. You can control your movement. You're learning how to control yourself in an atmosphere. Outside, you have no control. I can step off the curb and sprain my ankle. In the gym, I can squat 225 and I'm totally fine. And then I leave the gym and all hell breaks loose, right? But at that moment, there are things that you can control, and yet there's still things that are beyond your control. And I think that's a lesson for us that we can do as much as we can prepare, but also in our minds know something could go wrong, and we have to be ready for that and okay with it. That we've done everything we can and not beat ourselves up about it, knock ourselves down, have a day at the gym where something doesn't go right and move on. And not make it's not the end of the world. And I think that's where the attitude comes into play, where for some people, it is the end of the world.
Yeah.
It was a rotten day and I suck and I'm weak and I don't even know why I'm doing this. Or you could say, well, that was a bad day. Okay. Let's see how tomorrow goes. And just not even think about tomorrow. Just think about like, that was good. And I think I'll go do some curls now. And then I'm going to leave. So that I would love to, I think that, we're going to wrap this up, everybody, but I think that's something to kind of talk more about. I think coming back to the rigidity that some people might have with their training and what really is strength training. I saw Barbell Logic had a quick thing on their Instagram post. It was Nikki and Andrew, I think, talking about what strength training really looks like, and basically talking about like lifters who are training, once a week or, 15 minutes a day, and that they're still making progress. And why are they making progress? Well, because they're still training and they're compliant with the program and they're putting in the work. And no, it's not 3 days a week. And no, it's not, an hour and a half. But does that really matter if you're making progress and you're compliant? And the attitude is, whenever I get in there, as Manny said, I'm going to show up and do something. That's what I see with my clients who show up and do something. They're the ones who keep showing up and keep coming back and keep making progress. Not the ones who have a bad day and then decide not to come back for 2 weeks because, they had a bad day. They had one bad day. So interesting topic. I think we want to focus more on. Thank you, Manny. So this podcast is going to actually come out in a week because today would been one, but we didn't have one in the lineup. But I think we've got some good topics ahead of time, and we are trying to get Dr. Fred on. We're trying to get our mental health expert on the podcast. So we have to figure out what day works for us to have him on. So we will be coming back to not just mental training, but mental health. and have somebody who really kind of knows what they're talking about discuss things. I think that wraps it up. So thanks everybody for spending some time with us today and listening to Manny philosophize. And we'll definitely have him back on, as Rebecca said. Well, yes, I mean, so we're going to podcast with Manny. What did you say? Something like we're going to podcast and we'll be there.
No, Manny's going to podcast.
Manny's going to podcast and we'll be present. That's why every now and then I have to go, oh, right. Yes, just to make sure everybody remembers that Rebecca and I are still here. We haven't gone away. He's great, which is why everybody flocks to him when he comes to the gym. But his mental game has definitely improved, and for the better over the past year or so. And when he talked to me about the mental technique that he was working on, the first thing I thought of was, of course, Al Franken. And I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. Right. I mean, that's what it is. It's like talking to yourself, like, I'm good enough. I'm strong enough. I can do this. And it's not corny. It does make sense. It's that glass is half what, and you can do it. It's half full or it's half empty. It's your call, but I'm always going to go with half full, and that's what he's looking at. So, of course, if you have any questions, concerns, comments about our podcast or anything we talked about, please always let us know. You can reach me at Emily@findmyfree.com or Rebecca at
cornerstonestrengthmaryland@gmail.com. I haven't done that for a while. I was like, whoa, wait.
She almost forgot her email. So thanks everybody for spending some time with us today, and we'll be back soon. Thank you. Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah, take care.
Bye. Thanks for listening to 5x3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5x3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's F-I-V-E, the letter X, the number 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.